Alex Stevens stood on the balcony of his Weston estate, watching the sun set over the manicured lawns. The sky was a wash of orange and crimson, a stark contrast to the storm brewing within him. He had everything a man could want: wealth, power, a beautiful home, and a wife whose poise made her the perfect accessory to his public image. Yet, Alex felt hollow, as if success had stolen a part of him he couldn't reclaim. For the past few months, something had shifted in Alex's life, an imperceptible change that only he seemed to notice. The empire he had built felt less like an achievement and more like a gilded cage. His days were filled with boardroom meetings and investor calls, but at night, as he lay in bed beside Susan, he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was slipping through his fingers. Alex and Susan's marriage, once filled with laughter and shared dreams, had devolved into a transactional relationship. They were partners in public, but behind closed doors they were strangers. Conversations had become curt and functional, revolving around social events, charity galas, and the management of their estate. Hey, quick pause. If you're enjoying this so far, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel and motivates me to keep bringing you more amazing content. Now let's continue with the content. It wasn't just the marriage that had fractured, it was the man himself. Alex had built his wealth in the tech industry, a sector that thrived on disruption and innovation. Yet for all his professional success, he had failed to adapt to the changes in his personal life. Emily Clark was a departure from everything Susan represented. Where Susan was composed and elegant, Emily was vibrant and unpredictable. She challenged Alex in ways that reignited a spark he hadn't felt in years. Their affair began as a whirlwind romance, a secret escape from the monotony of his life. At first it was exhilarating, stolen weekends in boutique hotels, whispered conversations over candlelit dinners, and the thrill of something forbidden. But as the months passed, the affair took on a different tone. Emily grew more attached, more demanding. She wanted a future with Alex, one that didn't include the shadows and secrecy. "You promised me," Emily had whispered during their last meeting, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and desperation. "You said you'd leave her." Alex had avoided her gaze, focusing instead on the glass of scotch in his hand. "It's complicated," he had replied. "I need time." But time was running out. In the weeks leading up to his disappearance, Alex began to notice things that unsettled him. A car parked across the street for hours, its driver concealed behind tinted windows. Unfamiliar faces at his favorite coffee shop, their eyes lingering on him just a little too long. At first, he dismissed it as paranoia, a byproduct of stress and guilt. But the feeling persisted, gnawing at the edges of his sanity. One evening, while reviewing financial statements in his office, he noticed something alarming. A series of unauthorized transactions from one of his offshore accounts. Alex confronted his CFO, who assured him it was likely a clerical error, but Alex wasn't convinced. He knew the patterns of corporate sabotage, the subtle manipulations designed to go unnoticed, until it was too late. That night, Alex withdrew a large sum of cash from his personal account. A contingency plan. He didn't know what he was preparing for, but instinct told him to be ready. 3 days before his disappearance, Susan found the first clue. An innocuous text message that shattered her carefully curated reality. "Miss you. Can't wait to see you again." On the evening of December 7th, Alex had one more meeting, a private conversation with someone who could change everything. He sent the message to an unknown number. "We need to talk, tonight. No delays." Who was he meeting? A business associate? A threat from his past? Or someone closer to home? At 7:17 p.m., Alex disabled the security cameras, ensuring that whatever transpired that night would remain unseen. Susan watched him retreat to his office, unaware that it would be the last time she saw him alive, As Alex sat alone in his office, the weight of his choices bore down on him. His affair, his failing marriage, the whispers of betrayal in his business, all converged into a single inescapable reality. He reached for his phone, considering calling Emily, or perhaps the unknown contact, but the words escaped him. What could he say? The clock ticked steadily, each second a reminder that time, once a resource he controlled, was now slipping away. Outside, the dark SUV waited, and Alex Stevens, a man who had once commanded boardrooms and conquered industries, found himself at the mercy of forces he could no longer control. That night, he made a choice. A decision that would set into motion a chain of events leading to his disappearance. Alex Stevens was the kind of man who could captivate a room without saying much. His quiet confidence, paired with a sharp intellect, had built him a tech empire that positioned him as one of Boston's most influential businessmen. Despite his public success, those who truly knew him understood that his private life was unraveling. On the evening of December 7th, 2023, Alex returned to his sprawling Weston estate after a tense business meeting. It was just after 8 p.m. when he stepped through the grand oak doors. His wife, Susan, greeted him briefly in the foyer, but Alex barely acknowledged her. He was distant, distracted. A behavior that had become increasingly common over the past few months. Without a word, he retreated to his private office, closing the door behind him. Susan watched him go, her expression unreadable. She had grown accustomed to his coldness, but something about tonight felt different. There was a heaviness in the air, a tension she couldn't place. By 10 p.m., when Alex hadn't come down for dinner, Susan didn't bother to check on him. Instead, she poured herself a glass of wine and settled into the leather armchair in their dimly lit living room. The silence of the house enveloped her, broken only by the faint hum of the security system. Susan woke the next morning to an empty bed. It wasn't unusual for Alex to sleep in his office, but when she went to check on him, her heart sank. The office door was slightly ajar, and inside, his phone, wallet, and car keys sat neatly on the desk. His luxury sedan remained in the driveway. She called out for him, her voice echoing through the cavernous house. No response. Susan's first instinct was to maintain composure. She called a few of Alex's colleagues, feigning casual concern. "Have you seen Alex? He might have left early for a meeting," she said, her voice calm. But by noon, when no one had seen or heard from him, Susan contacted the police. Detectives arrived within the hour. They questioned Susan, noting her calm demeanor. "It's not like Alex to just disappear," she told them. "He's always so meticulous about his schedule." But as the investigation unfolded, Susan's composed exterior began to crack. Detectives started with the basics: phone records, security footage, and interviews with neighbors. The first red flag appeared almost immediately. Security cameras surrounding the Stevens estate had stopped recording at 8:17 p.m. on December 7th. A call to the security company revealed no technical issues. The cameras had been manually disabled from inside the house. Neighbors reported seeing a dark SUV parked near the estate around 9 p.m. The vehicle was gone by morning, and no one recognized it. Surveillance footage from nearby streets showed the SUV leaving Weston, only to disappear off the grid shortly after. Alex's phone offered another clue. His last message was sent to an unknown number. "We need to talk. Tonight. No delays." As days passed, the case gained media attention. The affluent suburb of Weston buzzed with speculation. How could a man like Alex Stevens vanish without a trace? Then a name emerged. Emily Clark, the other woman. Emily Clark was a 28-year-old marketing executive, a rising star in the tech industry with a reputation for ambition and charm. She had been romantically involved with Alex for over a year. Investigators quickly discovered that Emily had also been unreachable since December 7th. Her apartment was empty, her phone disconnected. Friends described her as vibrant and driven, but in recent weeks she had confided that she was feeling trapped. She said Alex was pulling away, one friend revealed. She was scared he was going to end things. Susan, meanwhile, denied any knowledge of the affair. Alex and I had our problems, but I didn't know about another woman, she told detectives. But friends painted a different picture. She knew, one confidant whispered. Susan found text messages weeks ago. She even hired a private investigator to follow Alex. 2 weeks after Alex's disappearance, a forensic team made a chilling discovery. Traces of blood were found in Alex's private office. Small, but enough to suggest foul play. Testing confirmed it was Alex's blood. The revelation shifted the investigation from a missing person case to a potential homicide. Susan's behavior, once seen as composed, now seemed suspicious. A neighbor provided a critical piece of information. On the night of December 7th, they heard a heated argument coming from the Stevens residence, followed by the sound of something heavy being dragged across the floor. Detectives obtained surveillance footage from a nearby street camera. It showed a black SUV, later identified as Susan's, leaving the neighborhood around 10:30 p.m. The vehicle returned 2 hours later, its trunk visibly sagging under the weight of an unknown object. On January 1st, 2024, nearly a month after Alex's disappearance, police arrested Susan on suspicion of murder. During a search of her SUV, cadaver dogs alerted to the presence of human remains. Forensic testing confirmed traces of Alex's DNA in the trunk. The final nail in the coffin was a text message found on Susan's phone, sent to an unknown contact the night of Alex's disappearance. It's done. We need to move quickly. The contact was identified as the private investigator Susan had hired. Under pressure, he confessed. Susan had offered him a substantial sum to help dispose of Alex's body. Susan's trial began in late 2024, captivating the nation. Prosecutors painted her as a calculating woman driven by jealousy and greed. They argued that Susan murdered Alex to preserve her luxurious lifestyle, especially after discovering that Alex was drafting a new will that would significantly reduce her inheritance. The defense countered with a bold theory: Alex had staged his own disappearance. They pointed to the Lodge cash withdrawal and his recent paranoia. He was afraid, the defense attorney argued. Alex believed someone was after him. But the theory crumbled when the private investigator took the stand, detailing how Susan orchestrated the crime. The most damning evidence came when a shallow grave was discovered in a remote wooded area outside Weston. Inside was Alex's body, wrapped in a tarp with blunt force trauma to the head. The tarp was traced to a recent purchase Susan had made. After a 4-week trial, the jury deliberated for only 6 hours before deliberated for only 6 hours before deliberated for only 6 hours. She was convicted of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and obstruction of justice. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. As she was led away in handcuffs, Susan maintained her innocence. "I was framed," she insisted. But few believed her. Even after Susan's conviction, questions lingered. What happened to Emily Clark? Her body was never found. Did she meet the same fate as Alex, or was she part of a broader conspiracy? Did Susan act alone? Some whispered that Alex's business dealings played a role in his demise. Was there someone else pulling the strings? The case of Alex Stevens left Weston in shock. His legacy, once defined by ambition and success, became a cautionary tale of betrayal, deception, and the dark side of privilege. In the end, the truth remained elusive, buried beneath layers of lies and secrets. Just like Alex.